Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and we got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about fenbenzidole, mebendazole, COP30. Yes, the climate agenda is still here, the JFK assassination, and so much more as we get deep in the weeds at WQUD 1077. I do want to remind everybody, I cannot do it without you. $5, $10, $15. It absolutely means the world to me. Please consider supporting the broadcast via the links down below. Big donors, please jump on board. We've also got a PayPal. It's time to buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness.
I am doing great. It's Friday. Next week we got a short week, so that's cool. And, why not be in a good mood, right?
Exactly. And, I'm going to start off with some good news out there. And this is going to actually tail with a separate drug and video that I did many, many years ago now. It's one of my, not that we're killing it.
You
but
did a drug many, many years ago? What now?
So I had covered a story many years ago now, 6 years ago. I almost had this individual on my broadcast. He canceled last minute. I really got to get him on. It's a guy named Joe Tippins. And essentially, this is a guy who had stage 4 cancer. He had gone all of the normal routes that one would go, whether it be, chemo, traditional therapies, etc. None of it was working for him. They basically told him it was time to go to hospice and die. Well, he was contacted by an individual that he went to college with who had worked for a prominent drug company. They weren't even the best of friends. However, this person had come across trials, and I want to make this extremely clear right now. I am not a doctor. I am not giving you medical advice. I am not telling you what works and what doesn't. However, this person told Joe Tippins that they had had brain cancer, stage 4. And they had actually seen trials and studies on a dewormer drug that many of us use for our dogs called fenbenzidole. Now, fenbenzidole is usually in other little packages like Panic C and things like that. It's like $10 to $15 a dose. And he was told by this person that they cured their brain cancer by utilizing that, high levels of concentrated curcumin, and high levels of vitamin E or fish oil. And sure enough, Tippins is cancer-free to this day. I believe his site, and maybe we'll do it live here if you're watching on the replay on my thing. We'll type in My Cancer Story Rocks. I think that's it. MyCancerStory.rocks for anybody that wants to doubt me on this. Please go check it out. So how does that come into today? Well, Tippins has been really at it with fenbenzidole. And for instance, we have this September 2024 paper I'm showing behind me, Oral Fenbenzidole for Cancer Therapy in Humans and Animals. So he's actually gotten trials for people that have had cancers that really you're up against the odds against, including pancreatic cancer, one of the toughest ones. But that's not all. It seems like fenbenzidole is not the only dewormer that seems to be effective against cancer. And now we have this story. Again, you're not going to see it all over the news, hint, hint. You might have to look for it, but I guarantee if you type it in, you're going to find it in a multitude of mainstream outlets now. Scientists redesigned common deworming drug to kill cancer cells, and the pill could even prevent the deadly disease. And now we're talking about mebendazole. So this drug also seems to work against cancer. Now, I want people to really think about this for a moment. Something that literally you can go and buy in the store for less than an Andrew Jackson, coupled with a couple other things that you would spend one time maybe in a month, another $20 on. So what we're really talking about is a treatment that would be less than $100 taken orally a month that seems to have an extreme success rate against cancer, and the vast majority of the public don't even know about it, yet it's so common that we give it to our dogs on a semi-regular basis, Aaron.
That's wild. and you hear about stuff like this. So the fact that you got some backup and some documentation from some medical folks, definitely, I would say we're taking a look at. Big Pharma is not going to like this.
They never have. And here's and here's the thing. You know, I'm a poor person. And unfortunately, folks, if you're listening to this broadcast, unless you're like from the Carver family, you're considered a poor person more than likely as well, even if you're doing pretty damn well for yourself. Hell, if you've got one of those nice Bettendorf McMansions, maybe you're pulling high six figures or even seven figures a year, you are a cash cow to the multi-billion, almost trillion-dollar cancer industry where we've all heard and seen the horror stories. Somebody in the family gets diagnosed with this, and it literally guts these people's savings over the next 3 to 5 years of treatment while a doctor tells you that you're going to have to do this, you're going to be dead in 6 months, but you might be able to get another 5 or 6 years. And I've seen it over and over again, unfortunately. And, you know, I had one of my best friends, a little less now than 2 years ago, succumb to cancer. And, you know, he was given the same lines as everybody else. And believe me, I sent him Mebendazole. And he basically said, look, I have to do what my wife is telling me to do. I have to do what my parents are telling me to do. And by doing that, the last 4 years of his life, he was unable to use his right arm at all because the cancer was in his shoulder. And during the beginnings of his treatment, they actually detached his arm. And they kept telling him, oh, you've only got 6 months or 18 months. He lasted about 4.5 years. And at the tail end, he's like, why did they detach my arm? So all I'm going to say is it is a very cautionary tale when you start talking to doctors about treatments in this area. But just remember, this is very, very, very much life and death. And I will say this, you know, I have seen other people, take to the internet, try these treatments and not be successful. However, if you look at the trials that they've put on, the success rates are much, much higher than what you see with traditional chemotherapy, especially with aggressive cancers. So this is the homework for everybody else out there. There's not a person listening that has not been touched by cancer by this point. Just not. And remember, Aaron, our generation, I don't know if you remember it, but I sure do. I remember being in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and being told how advanced we were and how we were going to cure cancer and how we were going to live longer. No, the complete opposite happened, where cancer has literally exploded and continued to explode, especially in the last 5 or 6 years globally. So it doesn't look like we're putting the kibosh on that. And the life expectancy of Americans has gone down significantly, where it used to be, depending on man, woman, circumstances, around 78 to 82. And now we're talking more in that 70 to 72 range. I hope people realize what is happening and dare to question the medical authority and perhaps take their or their family's care into their own hands. I think it was Heidi Klum. I may be misspeaking on the model, but there was a extremely popular model from our era that had cancer, literally disappeared from society, went and got alternative treatments, came out cancer-free. Do you think the media said, wow, what did you do? Wow, this is great. Let's have you on and let's talk about it. No, they all gunned for her and told her how dangerous it was to share her story with others and that she would cost lives.
It's tough. It's a tough topic. Folks want to follow your standard protocol practices and stuff like that. Although, even before this discussion, I've certainly heard some success stories for folks going with different methods and stuff like that. But
And by the way, I was wrong on that. It was Elle Macpherson. We're going to show that to people that are watching on the video. But Elle Macpherson had breast cancer, and she did not go the traditional means. She did not lop off her breasts. And let me say this. Anybody can look this up at this point. Look how many false positives they've given to women with breast cancer and then amputated a part of their body after the fact. We have to realize also in this country that medical malpractice is one of the leading causes of death here. So all I'm going to say, once again, not a doctor, not telling you what to do, but if you're looking behind me, I would read this study right now on not only Mebendazole, which is out there, and one of the things I'm not in love with is they're coupling it with other drugs that they're creating. For instance, they have a new crystal form of quote-unquote polymorph C. Now, I'm not saying that these other drugs aren't helpful, but it certainly seems to me that there have been other treatments out there for a very long time that are well known, that are very much outside of our modern medical industrial complex. And I would encourage people to go check that out. And I think that, this could be, the good news story of the year for somebody out there. It may not be me. It may not be you, Aaron, but I'll give you a great example. When I was in D.C. hosting that 9/11 event, a couple came up to me and the woman said, I watched your Joe Tippins video years ago. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with brain cancer, with tumors in my head. Her and her husband standing right there. And she said, I did the chemo. It didn't work. And I decided to try the Tippins treatment, and my doctors were shocked when my tumors not only shrunk, but eventually went away. And she told me she was still on the treatment. They actually donated a little bit of money to me and thanked me basically for saving her life. Now, I didn't save that woman's life. The information that she decided to take hold of and take charge of her life saved her life. And quite frankly, I was only a vessel or a messenger. So I would just tell this to people. I know that you love hearing me talk about the moon and Epstein and all these other things. But seriously, do not sleep on what I just told you. Dare to do your own research into this subject matter, because there is a school of thought out there, and again, I'm not a doctor, that cancer is actually a type of parasite, aka why a dewormer or multiple dewormers would work against this. And if that is the case, well, obviously, as human beings, we've had massive success in going after and eliminating parasites within our bodies. So that is certainly something to think about. And I really, once again, hope that people go check this out, Aaron.
Me too. I think, unfortunately, sickness and disease are big business for big pharma, and I feel like there's secrets in a filing cabinet somewhere where there's cures for lots of things, but it's just so much more financially beneficial for them to not let that kind of stuff out there. And I don't know, I'm not saying this, that, or the other. Again, not a doctor either, and not overly educated on the topic. I just feel like based on the greed level of what we see in our bigger industries in the U.S., it makes sense for them to have people sick versus healthy, sadly. And, so I feel like there's more action based on what's happening in their pocketbook versus what the right thing to do is. And, it is what it is. We're deep in the weeds with Jason Bermas here, brought to you by the River Cities Reader. You mentioned Epstein. He was in the news this week. President Trump, the White House came out and decided that they didn't want to keep the files hidden. They wanted them released. House had a vote, yada, yada, yada. Are some of these out now already? Have you read through them all 57 billion pages?
So, for those not following this ad nauseum like myself, let's get some things clear. First of all,
okay.
The House Intel Oversight Committee is why we got those emails last week that were new, that did shed massive new insight into Epstein, his relationships, his desire to take Trump down, his involvement with political figures that he donated to, including Hakeem Jeffries of the Democratic Party, and then somebody like Stacey Plaskett, who it seems he got elected and then used her as a mouthpiece for his questions during the Michael Cohen hearings, once again, to take Trump down. Now, there's other stuff in there. There's relationships with Peter Thiel. There's relationships with the Saudi Arabian family. There's some emails to suggest that Epstein was brokering separate type of diplomatic deals with Morocco, etc. So very, very interesting stuff. Now, Trump himself had been not only opposed to releasing these emails. Remember, the Department of Justice said, case closed. And that's when people had had enough. And they said, you know what? We got to keep pushing forward on this. And the very brave Thomas Massie, probably my favorite congressman, took to the forefront, found some counter leadership with Ro Khanna. MTG stepped up to the plate. And because they had the backing of the people, they barreled through this new bill that was passed 427 to 1, with the one lone holdout being a Republican named Clay Higgins. Now, there's some caveats here. So no, Aaron, there are no new documents yet. This was just a congressional bill, and it still has to pass through the Senate. Number one, Speaker Mike Johnson, just prior to the vote, came out and absolutely admitted that there are classified documents in this case. And when he did so, he essentially said that this bill would allow the mass declassification of documents within 30 days from multiple departments, and this would be outside of the norm to keep sources and methods. So what does that mean? That means we're probably not going to just see CIA files or DOD files. We're going to see Department of State files. We're going to see all sorts of different files that involved Epstein. Now, the congressional bill has a caveat in it, which I think is dangerous and I wish was not in the bill, but it would show the outright nature of the cover-up if this part of the bill was enacted. And what do I mean? Well, there's a subsection in the bill that would allow for some of these documents not to come out only if the president signs a new executive order as to such. So that would put Trump in a position to be very, very unpopular with his constituency. You know, forget about the people with TDS syndrome. If he has to come out and say, hey, I have to sign an executive order and none of these documents here, or here can come out, people are going to be pissed. I think they've gone about that in a roundabout manner. They've now reopened investigations into Epstein associates. We've seen Larry Summers, for instance, who we've known for years was at the right hand of Epstein, forced to not only resign from positions, but address his students at Harvard. If you haven't seen that video, it's a gem. Basically apologizing for his association with Epstein and saying, hey, we're just going to try to push through. I don't think he's going to be pushing through at Harvard. I think that he's going to be disappearing from public life. That was a last-ditch effort. Now, aside from the executive order, remember, just because a bill is passed in the House doesn't mean the same bill gets passed in the Senate. And Thomas Massie has been very, very vocal that the Senate is to leave this bill alone. Let me repeat that. Leave this bill alone, in the sense that if you do add any other caveats, well, then you're basically just eviscerating what these people have fought for. And Johnson wasn't just talking about classified material. Massie showed that he also said that they wanted to redact, quote unquote, innocent names. In other words, they didn't want to create new victims. And Massie just said, well, do you believe the victims or not? So now you're going to go in there and you're just going to classify names that you say are innocent, yet we've never had a real investigation. So this story continues to go nowhere in the sense that, it's not going to stop. We'll see what we get once the Senate has a vote. But once again, 427 to 1. And the funny thing about Higgins is, Higgins comes from the law enforcement fields, etc. Higgins got up there prior to the vote and ordered the censure of Stacey Plaskett, who is the individual that seems to be somebody who not only took money from Epstein to get elected, but then was basically his puppet. Now, he wasn't the only one to want a House Ethics Committee hearing on Plaskett. Many people did. And, of course, some of the Democratic colleagues of Plaskett tried to derail that during that congressional session where they did vote on it. So there's still a ton to come out via Epstein, via his relationships. But the question is whether or not we're actually going to get the meat and potatoes of those documents. Because, Aaron, as we sit here, a lot of people probably don't have this on their minds. But do you know what tomorrow is?
Saturday?
It is indeed Saturday. You are correct. It is also the anniversary of the murder of a president. It is the anniversary of the JFK assassination. And yes, and in recent memory, we've not really leaned into that assassination anniversary. The Trump administration has said we've got all the documents, Aaron. We've released everything. Well, I can assure you that absolutely 100% is not the case. And yesterday, I had an individual on my broadcast. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, and I encourage everybody to do so, Jason Bermas, Bermas, over at YouTube. There's an article out there by Elijah Milam, who, again, I actually met while I was out in D.C. On this trip about 9/11 accountability. And he came up to me, and he actually knew some intricacies of the case that we were talking about. And he said, well, what do you know about the black tape files of the CIA? And I'm like, the black tape files? I don't know anything about those. So behind me is Substack, exclusive CIA's black tape seals most sensitive JFK records. And what I really love about this is that he goes through, and in the article, he actually posts his work. And by his work, it is a multitude of documents that have been publicly available and that he was able to get through FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests. So, believe it or not, there is, or at least was, a top secret classification system within the CIA in which they would take a piece of 1-inch black Scotch tape and documents that were too sensitive to put into the regular filing system and be declassified the normal way, despite the fact many of these things are classified for decade upon decade upon decade upon decade, they needed yet another fail-safe. So they would take these documents, they would put them in a manila envelope, and then they would seal them with an actual piece of black duct tape, okay? And Helms is actually asked about these files. Now, again, what I really love is this guy, he shows his work. So all the documentation on the black tape files are in here. The denial of Helms himself knowing their existence, the fact that Helms was the one that brought the black tape file system into existence prior as a deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency before he was the full director, and was put in charge of many of the things involving Oswald. So we haven't seen these black tape files. In fact, a lot of people would like us to think that they do not exist. I would imagine that it's not just the JFK records that are sealed via these black tape files, but other large-scale events that could include things like Iran-Contra. And if that is the case, I assure everybody that Epstein has a place in Iran-Contra. And, a lot of people say, wait a minute, Jason, why aren't we hearing that? I know about the girls, I know about the Clintons, I know about why don't I know about Iran-Contra? Because people like Adnan Khashoggi, who were in business with Epstein and had a quote-unquote harem of women and were dealing arms, were absolutely never prosecuted. It's common knowledge that they were a part of it. But as I've stated before on this broadcast, it seems like in this country, We celebrate espionage. We celebrate arms dealing, as long as it's within the confines of our own government or our allies, such as Israel or Saudi Arabia. Two nation states that also seem to be intimately connected to Epstein. And I don't know if you've seen the video yet, Aaron. I've seen the video and I chuckled. I'll say this. You can hate Trump all you want. You can love Trump all you want. The entertainment value is off the charts. While he's on Air Force One a couple of days ago, he gets asked about the Epstein files. And one of the reporters is being persistent with him. And he literally looks at her, points at her, and says, "Quiet, piggy."
Nice.
Have you not seen this yet?
I didn't see the video. Mike said he saw it. I didn't see it.
Unbelievable.
What?
Unbelievable.
How does he get away with that?
Well, let me say this. Also kind of disturbing. And for me, one of those things where, hey, you're going to have to do your own research. And everybody, just so you know, we do live in a post-truth world. And we should not be believing artificial intelligence in any regard. So Grok came out and actually defended Trump, trying to say he didn't say piggy, that he said Peggy in reference to one of the staff members, Peggy Collins. There's a problem with that, Aaron. Peggy Collins wasn't on the plane. So, and
Let's try to whitewash that one up.
And look, I'm not here for narrative management on either side. If he was talking to Peggy Collins, I'd be the first to admit it. But you watch that video. He looks and points directly at this person and calls her a piggy. Now, I'm a big Muppets fan, and I just could not get the vision of, like, Miss Piggy in one of her little reporter outfits trying to talk to Trump, and, like, you know how the Muppets would, like, bite down on their mouth and have that, like, frustrated look? That just kept running through my head all day. So, look, again, you can love the guy, you can hate the guy. You can't tell me it's not entertainment.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he's president.
I thought he said little. I thought I heard the word little before piggy.
Oh.
You be quiet, you little piggy.
Really?
It's quiet, piggy. He goes, quiet.
Is it quiet, piggy?
It's quiet, piggy. So he says quiet twice, and he's got piggy in there. I mean, I would love to exaggerate, and I would love to have him also call her a Muppet, but I'll settle with quiet piggy.
Unreal. We are deep in the weeds with Jason Bermas, brought to you by River City's Reader. Let's wind back to the Kennedy thing you were talking about for a minute. So Mike and I were actually just talking about this earlier this morning, and we were talking about, you were the first person to really point out to me in the video where, you know, usually what you see is the car's already coming around the corner, and there's only one. There's a Secret Service guy next to Jackie O, but there isn't one next to JFK. Why? Well, because right before that, if you see the extended video, and again, you brought this to light on this show, you see the guy, the Secret Service guy's got something in his ear, somebody's telling him something, and then he's like waving his hands, and then he just walks away. He gets out of the way of the shot for the car to come around the corner. And I mean, again, just watch the video. When you know, knowing this now, when you watch the video, it makes sense. Why isn't there a guy next to JFK? Because they called him to get out of the way. Now, as time has gone on, and we originally started to talk about this after I found out that George H.W. Bush was there, but we don't know what he was doing. We know he's working with the CIA. We know Lee Harvey, now there's documentation showing he had ties to the CIA, but I don't think Lee Harvey shot him anyway. But I'm not trying to I don't want guys with dark glasses to bust in here or anything, but I really feel like H.W. may have even taken the shot himself, but was at least in charge. Well, we don't know what he was doing. There's no documentation. We know that he briefed J. Edgar Hoover right after on what happened because he had an inside, he knew what happened. But he, what was he doing? If, at the very least, he was probably in charge of whoever was there in Dallas. And so he maybe didn't do it himself, but maybe he was in charge of the orchestration of the assassination of JFK. You had a future family that ran the U.S. take out one that was doing it then.
Well, let me say this. Great documentary film out there called JFK 2, The Bush Connection. That is where I first saw this indisputable video of a angry and frustrated Secret Service agent being called off of the detail of protecting Kennedy in that motorcade just before. Now, other documentation that you just rightfully pointed to was the fact that we know of a George Bush from the Central Intelligence Agency that briefed J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI, the head of the FBI at the time, right after the event. Now, the CIA.
How do you know right after that happens what happened unless you were part of it?
It's a great question.
I mean,
but at the same time, Aaron, George H.W. Bush was never part officially of the Central Intelligence Agency until he became their director. Now, I want people to really take a step back and think of the implausibility of that. That they took somebody with quote-unquote no intelligence experience and then made them the director of the CIA. That's probably not real. For those that don't know the rise of George H.W. Bush, it really starts with his father, Prescott. And they were trying to get him into positions of power in the United States, including a couple of failed Senate runs. They stuck him in a position to the ambassador of China, I believe, via the United Nations as well, so he had those globalist connections. And then he eventually becomes the head of the Central Intelligence Agency after all of these controversial hearings happen with Richard Helms and others. Okay? I would say he is primed to be investigated in this manner. There's a famous photograph that seems to show Bush in Dealey Plaza on the day of the assassination. And when he was asked where he was during the assassination, he said that he did not recall. Also, remember that the Bush family is based out of what state? Texas. So there is a ton of circumstantial evidence that is already out there and on the surface. And if you watch this documentary film, you'll also see some connections to Zapata oil, amongst other things. I believe that this film also may espouse, it's been a very long time since I watched it, the theory that the driver shoots Kennedy, William Greer. I don't buy into that. I've watched that video, man, probably thousands of times and probably hundreds of times after hearing that revelation of the driver shooting Kennedy. It seems to me that is not what's going on. I certainly don't dismiss all of it outright. I would love to see more angles of what happened there, if in fact they may exist. We do know at least, we have that other video outside of the Zapruder film where we essentially see the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination. But yeah, George Bush, probably not the best guy. And his son, I think it was just yesterday, gave a nice little eulogy for his good friend, Dick Cheney, another super awesome guy.
Before we jump here, we are deep in the weeds with Jason Bermas, brought to you by River City's Reader. In life, in work, business, all the things, how do you get from basic operative to boss in a hurry? You do something that nobody else wants to do.
I would tell people
on the big job.
Yeah, I would say watch Boardwalk Empire. That's a great fictionalized series on HBO with Steve Buscemi, and it follows a guy named Nookie Thompson, who's based on a real guy named Nookie Johnson, who would become, I believe it's the mayor of Atlantic City. So, it's got some real historical context in them, some real figures such as like Al Capone and Luciano, but also towards the end, Joe Kennedy is in it. And, if people don't know how the Kennedys themselves came up, Joe Kennedy was a bootlegger. Gangster, exactly, and wanted to legitimize himself in the political arena. So, a lot of these people came up through those routes. And when you really think about the upper echelons of government, it works exactly like a cartel, exactly like a mafia. And those that seem to rise to the top, like you said, are willing to do what others are not willing to do. And a lot of times, those things do involve mayhem and murder.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then you said the thing about the driver. There's no need to move a Secret Service agent if the driver did the shooting. Again, even if Bush didn't pull the trigger, I feel like he was in charge or very, part of the situation. Otherwise, who says they don't recall where they were when JFK got shot when they were there, like literally there? Like what? What do you mean you don't recall? Like you were like everyone recalls when they heard about it. You watched it happen or made it happen. Like I don't know, man. And I said this. So there's a couple guys I'm on a group text with. They're quite a bit older than me. One is a DJ here. Another is a mutual friend between us. And they brought up the JFK stuff. And I told them what I thought, which is what we were just talking about. And crickets. No response at all. That neither one even knew what to do with that. I also threw the moon math at them, and they didn't like that either. So it is what it is. But, and I'm not telling anybody what happened or didn't happen or anything like that. I'm just saying that just like you like to bring to light certain things, like certain facts, like, hey, do your own research, figure it out. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just saying maybe have a look at this.
And that's the whole thing. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. Period. That is not my job. Instead, my job is to point to things, at least in my opinion, that I've discovered, read, seen, try to contextualize them, and also find other baseline information that can either support that evidence or perhaps discredit it. I don't own the narrative, and I hope, again, that other people can simply just take what I'm saying and then take a look at it for themselves, because that's really the power that we all have, is to have that type of discernment and then act on it. And one of the things that I hope most people have some discernment on is this idea of a digital identification, a digital ID, which is rapidly coming to fruition globally, and something that they would love to have in the United States, based around our government, but not just our government. And what do I mean by that? Well, the powers that shouldn't be, the predator class, are so desperate to get us on a digital identification system so they can get us on a full digital currency, and this would enact a full-scale global digital credit score, the likes which we already see in China, that they're willing to work with private entities to get you used to and accustomed to these type of things. Whether it's the real ID, that nice little star on your license that Kristi Noem is telling you on commercials is the best thing since breakfast, and it's going to protect us all with the Department of Homeland Security. Just a lot of
like an omelet for breakfast. She should eat a sandwich. She's skinny. Eat some food, girl.
I mean, again, I don't care about your diet. I'm not in love with I'm not in love with all the lipstick and the eyeliner and the beauty queen stuff. As you're a government official.
They should make her like a Barbie action figure, like different, it's Department of Homeland Security ball cap Kristi. It's Office Kristi. Anyway.
Well, they already call her Ice Barbie. Yeah, they already call her Ice Barbie, and they should. But in the great state of Illinois, guess what? They just launched digital IDs in your Apple Wallet. So now, if you're one of the cool kids and you got the latest iPhone, you really don't need the latest iPhone. You can just have any iPhone. You can now carry your government ID via your Apple Wallet. And they're going to use it you can use it at the airport. It's just so convenient. So I just did a panel discussion with Catherine Austin Fitz, with Ryan Christian, Steve from Slow News Day, and a host of others. Ian Davis, who's just written a great book on a lot of these technologies and where we're headed. And I would just say this: be very, very wary of what you buy into and use when we're talking about digital currency and digital ID, because the ultimate goal is to merge those two things together for the ultimate command and control of not only your monetary system, but your movement as well. We already have congestion pricing in New York City that, in my opinion, is completely unconstitutional and should be completely illegal. But these are the steps that are being taken right now to get us used to the restriction of movement, the presentation of an all-encompassing digital ID tied to our biometrics and also tied to that social credit score that can be manipulated at a moment's notice. Remember, we're working on close to now a decade of that system being implemented and being implemented more and more over that decade. Their social credit system, where if you speak out against the government or if you do something that they don't like, all of a sudden you're not allowed on a plane. You're not allowed on a train. Your kid can't go to a certain university because your social credit score is not high enough. And if that doesn't take it far enough for you, realize that these lunatics not only want full-on digital currency that can be controlled and created at a whim via these entities, but the Muskernuts was just out there in a conference maybe 2-3 weeks ago talking about the future of human beings and currency. And he literally said that perhaps in the future, your value, your currency will be based on the amount of amperage, in other words, wattage, that your body creates for the system and is then harnessed. Talk about dystopia, Aaron.
That's Matrix, man.
Yeah, it's Matrix.
That's the Matrix.
Put me in a pod.
Remember they call him a copper top because he's a battery, because he's still in the Matrix? That's legit 100% the Matrix. Maybe Musk has been, snorting blow, smoking pot, and staying up too late, and he's watching the Matrix over and over or something. I hope that's what it is, because that's spooky. It's all spooky anyway. He's spooky as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I don't think that marijuana does that. I'm a huge marijuana advocate. However, his drug of choice seems to be ketamine. And if anybody out there has ever taken
Isn't that tranquilizer or something?
the horse tranquilizer, ketamine, I only did it one time in college on a Halloween, and I think I was 18 years old. Not a great time. Probably like one of the worst nightmarish times I've ever had in my life, and stayed right away from that drug after the fact.
Yes. Say no to drugs, Jason. No, he's weird as all get out. He's super rich. He might be a robot. We don't know. I mean, just throw that one out there, because who knows? That guy's weird.
I mean, Aaron, he's not a robot. He comes from a highly abusive home where his
I read
father.
the book.
Well, I mean, his father, is dated
Has
his.
kids with his stepsister, right?
Yes, and on top of that, we now have allegations of other people in the family that they were sexually abused by this guy. And on top of that, Musk has been somewhat vocal of the abuse that his mother endured from this individual. And remember, we were talking about power structures and governments. Remember that these guys are precious mineral miners, emerald miners. I mean, if you look at the way that the emerald mines or precious stone mines are run in places like South Africa, it's not a great time. You talk about human rights. Let's just say that human rights don't exist in the same manner that they do in the United States in these arenas, and that's literally how his family gained their wealth.
Yeah, I knew his dad was into, some of that stuff, and I know that he borrowed money, I think, a couple of different times from his dad, at least one of the books I read about him, and who knows, how much is really true or this, that, or the other. It also said that his whole end goal in life was to get to Mars, and I think that's his story, but I don't think that's the true story.
I would agree 1,000%. I think a lot of that is hyperbole. In fact, Musk was out there criticizing Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary. Now, Musk is trying to get his own SpaceX guy in at the head of NASA. There isn't really a de facto head of NASA right now. In fact, it is Sean Duffy because he's the head of the transportation department. But Musk is open. Duffy said, "What we're going to put nuclear reactors on the moon, and we're going to go take a trip with human beings around the moon. It's this year, bro, 2026. We're really going to do it." And even Musk, someone who's telling us we're going to Mars, we're not going to Mars, says that it's extremely dangerous, that he's putting lives at risk, that it's being rushed, because he damn well knows. He even talked about the quote-unquote Challenger disaster, and that if we try to rush these things, we're going to see that again. Just, what was it, last week or the week before, other than the ISS, China also has their own space station. I think it's 230 or so miles up in the air. Their pod that was sent up had some things going on with it, so they weren't able to come down. They were eventually rescued, but once again, when you see what their pod looks like when it lands, I mean, again, you're re-entering the atmosphere, folks. The whole thing is like burned up, and these astronauts, they can't even walk when they get out of this pod. They're taken out on a stretcher. Space is hard, everybody.
Yeah.
I assure everybody that it's a lot harder than it has been portrayed in video games, movies, television, and popular culture. So that's certainly something that I'm keeping my eye on. It's one of those things, to me, that the public is extremely ignorant about the weaponization of space, the technologies that governments have. I was having a discussion with somebody last week after the Babylon Bee ran that, obviously comical headline that Tucker Carlson had interviewed Bigfoot, and they were discussing the mind control substances being sprayed via chemtrails by lasers and the Jews, or something like that, right?
Oh, boy.
Exactly. And,
That's real deep in the weeds there, brother.
I mean, the problem is I've got to sit there and watch that type of satire, and at the same time, I have to walk outside of my house and see massive geoengineering going on in the skies with teams of 6 to 8 planes doing crosshatch patterns. And what prompted that was the fact that Tucker Carlson had somebody from Geoengineering Watch, Dane Wigington, on his broadcast to really lay it all out. And I would encourage people to go check out my film, Shade the Motion Picture. It's free in the playlist section over at my YouTube right now. And you will see how real geoengineering and bioengineering programs are. And if you look at the date on that movie in 2013, I have a large section on Bill Gates being involved in those very programs, being involved in farming, and of course, being involved in the lovely shots that he just can't wait to put into the general populace. And remember, one of the large diatribes from guys like not only Gates, but Musk himself, they act like, oh, they're always fighting, is this climate scam, right? This climate change. We're all terrible, and our carbon footprint is bad, and we've got to reduce that carbon footprint. You notice Gates had to roll that back a little bit lately. Well, that's because they're getting ready to take a bunch of our resources for these data centers, as we've talked about. But a lot of folks aren't aware. COP, which is the UN's climate change conference, COP30 is going on right now. Now, to Trump's credit, one of the things that I really do like about the guy, he didn't go, and he didn't send any envoys. There'll be no John Kerrys there this year. But one of the craziest things about these organizations is how out of touch with the public arena they are, in the sense that they always have something like weird and outwardly demonic representing them. And I know people are listening to this. Yeah, exactly. And they're going, what the hell are you talking about, bro? You're way too deep in the weeds. Well, another reason to subscribe to the broadcast and check out the video after the fact, which we'll be posting in short order, is that their mascot this year, okay, Aaron, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
The statue that people are looking at right now is a jaguar dragon, guardian spirit of the forest, holding a globe that says COP30 on it. Now, I know you can't see this, but if you go to my X account, / Jason Bermas, if you're over on the computer, just scroll down a little bit and you will see it. It is a human-like being with a jaguar head and demon dragon horns. And this is the guardian spirit of the tropical rainforest that the good people at the United Nations just can't get enough of. I mean, when I see things like this, it is almost cartoon level, but then you see what these people are trying to do to humanity, and unfortunately, it just makes all the sense in the world.
Man, every Friday you get me going on something, and I'm like, Jaguar Dragon, yeah.
It looks like something out of an anime come to life, Aaron. Like, it doesn't look like it could possibly be real. Let me say this. Not only did the United States not go this year, I'm probably going to be doing a more extensive video of this later on today, but you did have a bunch of youth storm the conference and light it on fire. They had to call it off yesterday because of arson. A friend of mine and great journalist out there, Alex Newman, he was at the conference at COP 30, and he had this great setup. He always does every time I see him. Where they set up the little newsroom or whatever. Yeah, he had to do his interviews from a car yesterday because protesters went in, started destroying stuff, and lit it on fire.
Good times.
I'm not encouraging those kind of times, but I'm telling you what.
Me neither. I mean, that's sarcasm.
I get it. I'm just saying you push
nice.
people, Aaron. You push people, and not every nation acts like the United States. We can sit here and we can talk about the riots in, Portland and those type of things. In second and third world nations, it's that tipping scale where all of a sudden these people are ready to actually go after their Muppet puppet leaders and hold them accountable on the spot. It's not just second and third world nations. You got to remember France.
Life is harder there.
I mean, people are fed up. And, The problem here is if that ever comes here, right now they're trying to portray this idea of a civil war and that we're more broken up than ever. I assure you we are not on the verge of a civil war in this country, but if they are able to evoke these pockets of violence and then, shoot out the narrative that it's the left or the right, the conservatives, the liberals, the MAGAs, etc., they will certainly try to portray it that way to gain more and more power, a microcosm for this. And I know that this is probably a story that you've seen by now, but you have this guy out in Chicago, and he lights a woman on fire on the subway a couple days ago. You saw this, right?
Yeah, he's been let out of jail. He's been arrested 70 times.
So that's the latest number. I had 49 yesterday, along with 10 different felonies. Now, there is absolutely no reason that this person should not have been in jail for the rest of his life decades ago. Do you know what his last charge was?
I don't.
So the last thing that he did prior to this is he beat a social worker. Again, someone was trying to help him, hospitalized that person, okay, and was actually had an ankle bracelet on. So another judge decided, first of all, that judge decided not to incarcerate the person and keep them there, but let them out and had the ankle bracelet. Another judge got rid of the ankle bracelet. And now he does this, and they want to charge him with terrorism. Does this sound like a political operative to you? Does this sound like a terrorist? Absolutely not. He is a psychopathic criminal that had no place on the streets, but you don't charge him with terrorism, because if you do that, then you can charge others with terrorism. So instead of actually fixing the problem with actual crime in this country, you want to over-criminalize things. So guys like you and me don't have our constitutional rights, and people cheer it on and be like, yeah, he is a terrorist. No, he's a total psychopath that should never be let out of prison and shouldn't have been out of prison at the time. And unfortunately, again, things like, remember the 3 strikes, the 3-strike felony thing? I understand why people got upset about that, and we like to have things associated with sports and baseball, and they sound nice, et cetera, et cetera. But we do have to have a system where if you've been tried and convicted of violent felonies, there has to be a cutoff, all right? You see some of this stuff getting rolled back, like no cash bail in D.C. I don't think it's going anywhere. Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere in Illinois and Chicago, unfortunately, or New York. I'd love to see that turned around, but that is one of the mechanisms of chaos, and who ends up benefiting from it? Does the general populace?
Not us.
That's right. The state ends up benefiting from all of this chaos, and we're the victims. I mean, hey, we got several different angles on the train of this woman being lit on fire. So did all that surveillance stop her from being lit on fire? No. We're tracked, we're traced, we're databased, and now it's easier than ever to classify us as terrorists. And once again, this is that kind of microcosm for how the entire country has gone and how they would like the entire world to go.
Well, and I'd love to know, Illinois, one of the reasons for their no cash bail, or one of the arguments for it, was the amount of money it would save to not house prisoners. I'd love to know where that money's at.
Mm-hmm.
In closing, real quick, I just want to remind everyone, if you Google how long did it take to get to the moon in 1969, it'll tell you 76 hours. That's 250,000 miles away. The International Space Station's 300 miles away, and it takes 15 hours. So that's the math I was speaking of earlier, if anyone hasn't been listening in previous weeks or know what I'm talking about. And, by the way, the guys on that mission jumped off the ship and were golfing and, backflipping and stuff like that. They were in great shape. So whatever magic juice we had back in 69 for these astronauts when they got there, they need to find it and use it for our astronauts today, maybe.
I mean, they sure do. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. A lot of, we've talked about Freemasonry here a couple weeks ago. A lot of people don't know, but all those astronauts were also in the Freemasonic order. That is not by mistake. It is these little brotherhoods or cliques that can keep secrets, that do have different types of communication systems. And we're not part of those clubs. I'm not saying like all Freemasons, again, nothing like that. But go take a look at those original astronauts, and they were chosen for a reason.
Absolutely. You have been listening to Deep in the Weeds, brought to you by River City's Reader with Jason Bermas. You can check out this show that we just had up on his YouTube channel here, I'm sure, in a matter of minutes. Check out his documentary films. Man, I love talking to you every week. I love, so a lot of the topics we kind of get here and there, we go a little deep in the weeds, but it gets people thinking, I hope. And let's keep doing it. So you have a great weekend and a great Thanksgiving. I think we'll have you back here in 2 weeks.
Sounds great to me, Aaron. I want to thank you. And I want to have the audience, again, go back to the beginning and check out this research on cancer, whether it be fenbenzidole or mebendazole, these dewormers and anti-parasitic drugs. Please do your own research. And that is going to do it for the show, folks. I want to thank you for watching. Now, remember, what we just talked about, was it about conservatives or liberals, left, right, the evil Democrats or Republicans? No. It's always about reality, because it's not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. If you want to support the broadcast, I need you now more than ever. Please consider via the links down below, $5, $10, $15. It does mean the world to me. Big donors, thank you for keeping me afloat. And as always, I love you guys, and I will see you all on the flip side.